Great pleasure of mine, Ned, to welcome you and introduce you to the Democratic Town Committee from Southbury.
Well, thank you, Bob, and thank you all for being here. I'm delighted to be here. I have probably met more people in the last 30 days than I've met in the last 30 years, and I'm having the time of my life going around the state and going to town committees and talking to concerned citizens. And I'm pretty impressed. Everybody's showing up on a Washington's birthday like this. You're really doing your civic duty. That's great to see. I still call it Washington's birthday. I know it's President's Day, but you know the idea that Washington has to share it with Millard Fillmore and Franklin Pierce, I don't know. It's Washington's birthday for me. And I especially had a good time, driving here today, Bob, because Southbury reminds me a little bit of town where I got my start, which right out of college, I was the editor of a weekly newspaper down in southern Vermont. Grew up in southern Vermont. And although, unlike your town, this town was flat on its back when we got there. GE had just pulled out, taken all the good-paying jobs with them. And folks were sort of wondering where they go next. And as the reporter, they opened their homes and opened their hearts to me, and we chronicled what happened in this town over the course of the next couple of years. And I spent a lot of time with the selectmen and the Board of Ed and the local political and civic leaders. And it just gave me a real appreciation for what a difference good government can make. And I've carried that with me to this day. And I look at Washington a little bit right now. It just seems to me they've forgotten what a difference good government can make. And sometimes the folks we send to Washington have grown a little bit distant from the people that sent them there. I'd also say that probably like a lot of you, I responded with a certain amount of pride when Al Gore asked Joe Lieberman to join him on the national ticket 5 or 6 years ago. But what a difference to me 5 or 6 years could make. It just seems to me that Al Gore has really found his Democratic voice in that period of time, and Joe continues to lose his. And maybe it's just all Iraq all the time, but I have no question that Senator Lieberman, his sincerity, he sincerely supports the president's policies in Iraq, but I think he's wrong. I think stay the course is not a winning strategy in Iraq. And I do believe that more of the same from the Bush administration is a losing strategy, for America. And that's one reason I'm going to take this challenge, give folks a choice. And I guess, let me be clear, I think that the invasion of Iraq was a colossal strategic blunder for our country. As a former newspaper guy, I don't think we asked the tough questions going into this war. And I do believe that Joe Lieberman cheered on the president every step of the way. And I think we should have challenged the president when he told us the war would be easy. We'd be greeted as liberators. It would pay for itself. Mission accomplished. Weapons of mass destruction. Imminent threat. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And these were all the false premises that we sent our valiant troops off the war. And Bob, as you know so well, our troops performed brilliantly in Iraq. But here we are 3 years later, and we're staring down the barrel of a bloody stalemate. And I believe that the people that got us into this mess should be held accountable. Okay, Ned, well that's then, and now's now, and what do we do? Well, first of all, you listen to your generals and your military folks. And the first thing that General Casey on the ground in Iraq says is, the very presence of our troops, quotes, fuels the insurgency. You've all heard that testimony, I'm sure. I think we should listen to folks like Congressman Murtha. Nobody has a better relationship with the military than Congressman Murtha, who tell us that the Iraqis will not step forward and take responsibility for their own military defense until we pull back, until we take our troops back to the periphery, and until we make it clear to the Iraqis that we have no permanent designs on their oil, no permanent bases. It's time for the Iraqis to take control of their own destiny, and we're just getting in the way. To which Senator Lieberman responded that these critics are undercutting the credibility of the president. You remember that? And he wrote that piece in the Wall Street Journal entitled, "Troops Must Stay." And Senator, I respectfully disagree. And if you're not going to challenge the President on his failed foreign policy, those judicial policies and environmental policies and fiscal policies that are so harmful to this country, then I will. And I think it's time for the Democrats to really stand up and talk about the moral authority of this country. What does Abu Ghraib and outsourcing torture mean? And I ask, where's Joe? And about the illegal wiretaps and a president who believes he's above the law. And again, I ask, where's Joe? And talk about a federal government that increasingly intrudes upon our private lives. Do you remember the Terry Schiavo case? Does anybody remember that case?
Very well.
Where, George Bush flew back from Crawford in the middle of the night and Tom DeLay said Congress has got to intervene. This is the most personal and private of decisions. And again, I ask, where was Joe? He supported Tom DeLay in the intervention there. I can go on. How about the energy bill? The energy bill was passed last year. It was a terrible piece of legislation. It was loaded with tens of billions of dollars of tax subsidies for the oil producers. And believe me, they don't need any more incentives to produce. There are plenty of incentives out there. It was stripped of all the basic conservation and efficiency rules that we should have. It was overwhelmingly opposed by the environmental groups across the country. It was overwhelmingly opposed by Chris Dodd and almost all of the New England delegation. And where was Joe? He supported the energy bill. Look, enough of that. I'm an entrepreneur, as Bob said. I started up a business from scratch. It's in the telecommunications business. And we give consumers a choice. And I'm proud of that. And I'm in this race because I think we should give voters a choice in the Democratic primary. I'll say one other thing as an entrepreneur. I think if you're an entrepreneur in business, you're a progressive in government. And you see a problem and you want to solve it. You want to come up with creative solutions to old problems. And right now it just seems to me that our government is not dealing with issues. They're kicking the can down the road a little bit. And I would tell Senator Lieberman, please stop by Bridgeport or Southbury on your way back from Baghdad and talk to folks and see what's on their mind. One of the things I hear wherever I go is health care. We're paying more and more for health insurance, but we're getting less and less health care. What are you going to do about it? And it's a subject that I care about also as a small business guy. We're getting buried by health care costs. And when we lose business, we're losing jobs. The fly-by-night operations don't even offer their employees health insurance. And that's why we have a government. That's why we send these folks down to Washington to deal with these issues, solve with these issues. And I just believe that universal, affordable health care is to be a part of that solution. And on that, I ask, where's Joe? And I ask, where's our government on these issues? They're doing nothing, or they're making the situation worse. They're cutting Medicare. They're cutting Medicaid. They tried to privatize Social Security. They're cutting veterans' benefits and student loans. They're going after the safety net, all so that we can pay for tax cuts we can't afford, so we can pay for this war to nowhere, and so we can pay for this bridge to nowhere. Do you remember, you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember the bridge to nowhere? It was part of the omnibus transportation bill, 6,000 earmarks. An earmark is a special piece of pork for favored congressmen written by the lobbyists. It goes through with no congressional scrutiny. It's just passed. And it's all legal. That's what's terrible. It's all legal. It's like the Big Easy for the career politicians. Anyway, look, I'm coming in this way. I don't have a long political pedigree. I'm coming in this race as an outsider. I think you can sense I'm not afraid of a challenge. I'm going to challenge the status quo and business as usual down there in Washington. I'm going to challenge the Bush administration to do better, and I'm going to challenge the Bush administration to put their haughty arrogance in their back pocket and deal with the rest of the world with respect. I think that's how we win in a post-9/11 world.